Welcome to this lesson. So quickly, we're going to be looking at function and what is actually a function, why do we need a function, and how do we create or call a function. So function or method as it is, a function. What is a function? A function happens to be a set of statements that perform a task or calculates a value. So in other words, function is like an action word, which is a verb, for example. So the ability of your code to be able to carry out a particular task is called a function. And what is a method? Function and method are used interchangeably. They are technically the same and slightly different. Why are they the same? Because they are created the same way and they function the same way. What are the differences? The difference is that a function that is created inside a class is called a method. That's all. So a function is just like an action. So let's look at some of the things that we can actually get from a function. So as I said before now, a function happens to be a verb or an action. So for example, the ability of your program to be able to collect data from user is a function. The ability of your system or your core program to be able to validate the data collected is a function. For example, you're making a game, the ability for you to move the sprite upward, backward, forward, or left is called what? Is called a function. So how do we create a function? Very simple. Use the keyword function in the name, then we have what is called a parameter and a code block. So this is just the skeleton of a function. And when you want to call a function, what does it mean to call a function? It means you want to set that function into action. That is, you want it actually to carry out, a specific task. So why do you necessarily need a function? We need a function so that we avoid rewriting our code. For example, if I'm writing a program to actually create an animation, for example, jump animation, I've written the code and I want to use that code. I just have to wrap it in a method and call it instead of going back to create that. So when a method is called, what is passed into the method is called the argument. So let's quickly look at how we can create our own method. So I've already created a file here called index.js. So let's create the function. So the skeleton is how you're going to see function. That's the skeleton. Then the name of the function. So let's say this name of this function is called points. And we write out the skeleton. So this is it. So this was what you saw on the slide, not quite long. So you can see this is the name of the function. Then whatever I placed in here is called parameters. So what do we actually want to create here? We want to create a function that will be able to calculate the points, accumulated by a certain football club. Now, in a league, a football game, in a win, if you have a win in a football game is 3 points, a draw is just 1 point, and a loss is 0 point. So we want to be able to calculate the number of matches played. So we want to know the number of wins and the number of losses. We are really concerned about the calculation of the total number of points. So we're going to be giving it 3 parameters. So we're going to say this is number of win, then comma, then the second one is going to be number of draws, and the next one is going to be number of losses. So as I said before now, this is a win is going to be 3 points. So what we just want to print out here is the calculation of the win. So we want to get the total points. So let's create a variable, say let total point equal to, okay, so let's call it total points. So we're using the camel casing. So total points equal to. Now, we want to take the calculations now. Now, the number of win, we said a win is actually 3 points. So that means if we have 3 number of wins, we multiply multiply the number of wins by the point. So the point is 3. So we're going to say 3 multiply by the number of wins. The number of wins. Then we then add it to the number of draws. The number of draws is 2, right? And 1 point. So we're going to say 1. So 1 point actually starts for the draw. So we're going to say 1 plus number of draw. So that gives us 1 plus the number of draw. Then the number of losses, similarly, we're going to have 0 because the loss is 0 point. Then we're going to multiply this by number of losses. Mathematically, we all know anything multiplied by 0 is going to give us 0. So you might decide not to write this, but I'm just writing this just for the sake of understanding. So that's it. So the next thing we have to do is just to print out the points. That's the major logic we need to be able to calculate the points. So what are the points? So we console.log. Console.log. So we want to see what the total number of points is. Now don't forget, we save everything here in this variable called points. So what are we printing out now? I know you guessed right. So we're printing out total points. So that's what we're getting quickly. So we'll bring it out. So that means a function has been created. The name of the function is point. It takes 3 parameters, right? And these parameters actually stand for variables. Variables are just like containers. So if I put a 4 here, number of wins is going to say 4 times this. So let's call the method. So calling the method. So that's a comment. So the name of the method is called points. So we call that method and we put a parenthesis. Now it's taking 3 parameters. The first one is a win. So let's assume this football team had 12 wins, and the number of draws, maybe they have 12 draws also, and 6 losses. Okay. So we want to be able to know the total of this. So let's run that quickly. So we're going to solve first, then we can then run this. Oh, there's a typo. So save, then we run this. That's 48. So that means the total number of points is 48. Now, why is it useful? Why is this function useful? I may need to calculate for another thing. I do not necessarily have to write all this code. So this code has been created somewhere. So if I'm doing for another team, let's assume that this team is, let's say it's Chelsea. And I want to calculate the points for Chelsea. So it's going to be points. So we'll say point. I'll call the methods. Then let's assume Chelsea had 7 wins, 6 draws, and 2 losses. So it's going to give us the total points for what? For Chelsea. So I just want to concatenate this out. I want to take this off so we can see for this. So if we save this, we're going to get a different value. So what we have just done is creating a container that we can actually reuse our code. So all what you have inside here can be reused, can become reusable. So when you're creating a very bulky application, you may decide to put your code in functions, wrap them in functions, because you may always call them. So this is a function. A function is like a verb, an action word. And what does the function do? The function actually makes your code to be what? Reusable. How do we call it a function? Calling a function, you use the name of the function, then you pass in your argument. So this is called arguments. Whatever value you pass here is called argument. And here, the values you have here, the variables you have here are not called variable technically. They are called parameter. Thank you for watching. Bye.